Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Hello, Patrick Dunno here, news editor with the Irish Farmers Journal, and welcome to this week's podcast. Expectations ran high this week when the count to find out the next Macra president took place. In the end, James Healy from County Cork saw off County Wexford opponent O'Deill Evans by 91 votes to 60. Speaking immediately after the count, our reporter Pat O'Toole was there to get the reaction of the result from Healy.
James Healy, congratulations. You're the 37th president of Macra na Feirme. Just been elected half an hour ago, I believe, by quite a decisive margin, 91 votes to 60, so a strong mandate. Tell us about the campaign that brought you to this day and how you've come to find yourself as the president.
Thanks very much, Pat. Well, it's almost 3 months to the day since I declared my intention to run for Macra president, and since then, while it's been a very quick 3 months, they've flown by. You're going from week to week, you're going from event to event, and you're constantly tallying, constantly on the phone. If you're not at something, you're on the phone to somebody, and trying to coordinate that with a full-time job was fun. And I have to firstly thank my employer for giving me the leeway to do that. From a campaign point of view, I've been through a vice presidential campaign before, and I thought that was a struggle at the time, a lot of road, but my eyes have certainly been opened on this occasion. But it's a fantastic opportunity to get out and meet the members, and it was great to see so many members take an interest in the direction that they want the organisation to go in. There was huge crowds at each of the 6 hustings, and it shows that Macra members are interested in the decision making within the organisation, and they are. It means that the role of the president is important to every member, and with so many turning out, that there was an educated membership made the decision today. And look, while it was a relatively decisive margin, I would have to say that it's very likely that within clubs the margins were very tight, and it just happened that they fell my way. O'Deill is a very strong candidate, and I'm sure this won't be the last we see of her.
The membership of Macra obviously know you very well at this stage, and you've been a very experienced member of Macra, but for the rest of the rural community out there, I suppose, just tell us a little about yourself and who you are and how you've come to where you are today.
My name is James Healy, and I'm from Donaghmore in County Cork. I've been a member of Donaghmore Macra for almost 13 years now, I suppose. I was a founding member when we reformed the club in 2004, and since then, I've held roles at every level of the organisation, club, county and national, a variety, but I suppose at a national level I've been Munster Vice President and National Competitions Chair, 2 roles which have given me a huge amount of experience, both from a running of the organisation, but also interacting with the membership as Munster Vice President. I would have done a lot of travelling around the province, trying to support particularly counties that were developing, and stronger counties they like to see you, but they have their own strength and depth. But those counties that are developing are the ones that gain the most benefit from your time, and I think both of those roles were probably of huge benefit from the point of view of this campaign as well, because they prepare you from a public speaking point of view, from a presenting an argument point of view, but also they give you that opening that you've something to go to the members with and say, well, I was this previously, and it opens up the membership to you. From outside of Macra, I'm working as a production supervisor for a company called WiseTech. I've been with them now almost 7 years, and they're very kindly given me the opportunity to take a leave of absence. Obviously, it was pending the result of the election, so I must go back and tell them now, and hopefully they won't have changed their mind by the time I get home. But I'm very thankful to them as well for giving me the opportunity.
That makes you quite typical of Macra membership. Some people think of Macra as being a young farmers organisation, but it's far more than that, isn't it? You're from a farming background, but you haven't been farming.
No, and I think it's probably a result of the fact that there are not many farms now that can support two people. My father is working off farm as well, and my mother ends up minding the cattle most of the time. My uncle is a dairy farmer, so I would have spent a bit of time as well with him, particularly last year when he had his hip done, and we would have all had to throw the shoulder to the wheel to back him up. But Macra is a wide-ranging organisation now. It's not just young farmers. They are a big percentage of our membership, and we do need to remember that at our heart and at our core, agriculture is the thing that binds most Macra members together. They may not be directly farming themselves, but they are from a farming background, and I think the vast majority of members relate well to the rural and farming life, and that is what binds us all together to a very large degree. But we're a huge amount of Macra members now are professionals, and they are in a wide-ranging array of professions, and that's adding to the organisation as well, because all those are bringing a different aspect. And though while everybody to a degree in the agriculture sector has their own opinions, it's always good to get some outside opinions and opinions of those that don't necessarily understand how CAP works or how all these other benefits that we're doing great work to meet the criteria for, but that the ordinary person on the street doesn't necessarily understand what we're doing and why we deserve those supports. And it's good for those to be feeding into the argument as well, because they educate us and maybe take us outside of the bubble.
So I'm 17, I'm from a farming background. I come along to you and say, okay, why should I join Macra? What's in Macra for me?
There's a huge variety of things in Macra for you, and it's not just about farming, although many young fellas, I've seen a huge spate of tractor runs lately, and fellas love to get up and wash their tractor and take them out on a Sunday, and all the better if it's for charity. But I think Macra, people join Macra for a wide variety of reasons, and sometimes farmers will tell you they do it to get away from the farming, but we have our competitions, we have our 6 key programme areas, and obviously agriculture is a very important one of those, and we are lobbying on behalf of young farmers, be it on the next Common Agricultural Policy. We would like to do work from a farm safety point of view, and we're already doing some on that with our SkillNet programme, and educating young farmers is a huge part of what we're doing as well. So if you are a young farmer, that's the direction. That's how we're trying to lure you in. But we have all these other things going on. We have competitions, we have the social interaction, that opportunities that Macra provides. And while agriculture might be the reason you join, all of those other reasons are going to be part of the reason that you stay and that you value your membership of Macra.
And now that you've achieved the presidency, what's your key ambition for your 2-year term?
I think to increase membership and participation, because while you could prioritise one of the 6 key programme areas, when it comes down to it, if you have a membership that are more active and participating in more of our opportunities, then it means that across the board the organisation is improving, and the more members you have and the more active they are, it means that more members are feeding into directing our policy. It means that more members are feeding back the issues that are affecting them as rural young people, and if more people are taking part in our competitions, then they're gaining a huge amount from the personal development opportunities that the organisation is offering. So if we have a greater participation in membership by the end of my 2 years, I'll be very happy.
James Healy, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pat.
Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
This week, Aurivo Co-op announced that in 2016 its profit rose by 25% to €3.6 million. Our agribusiness editor, Owen Larry, sat down with Aurivo's chief executive, Aaron-Forde. The two discussed what the year has been like for the co-op, as well as dairy farmers, and to cast an eye over what lies ahead.
I'm here with Aaron-Forde, CEO of Aurivo Co-op, on the announcement of their annual report and annual results for 2016, where profits rose 25% to 3.6 million. Aaron, how was the year for you in 2016? And looking back on it, what were the biggest challenges in the year?
We're pleased with the outturn in what was a difficult year for our farmers, in particular our dairy farmers. But it's important that they own and are part of an organisation that's producing profit and profit to sustain itself, and in that regard it's been a reasonable year. Our biggest challenges were supporting farmers through a difficult first half of the year, and as markets recovered, returning that back to farmers as quickly as we could, while retaining enough in the business to sustain itself for reinvestment.
One of the biggest stories of the year has been Brexit and the implication of that for the Irish dairy industry. I suppose from where you're positioned in Aurivo, what does that mean for your business, and especially in the supply side, where a significant portion of your milk comes from Northern Ireland?
Yeah, we have a significant milk pool and a significant number of suppliers in Northern Ireland that are important to us, and we're important to them, obviously. Our ask would be that the border remains as free as possible, or as close to the current operational system as possible. We operated through the quota regime, in 2 different jurisdictions, and all the milk was accounted for. We think that's quite possible and sensible into the future. It's very, very important that no physical or economic barrier is put in the way of the dairy business for us and for Ireland Inc., given that almost a quarter of Northern Ireland's milk pool is processed by Southern-owned entities.
What do you see as the biggest challenge? Which sector or product type do you see as the biggest challenge going into the UK after Brexit happens?
So, as a dairy industry, our biggest export to the UK is cheddar cheese, followed by butter. Both of those account for about 90% of our exports. And in total, about 23 to 24% of Ireland's milk pool ends up in the UK. So it is a significant challenge for us. However, Britain has been for a long time a nation of low food inflation or even deflation. So one would hope that the aspiration on both sides would be for a tariff-free environment.
Yeah. Moving on to milk outlook for this year, I suppose the price has improved significantly over this time last year. The outlook looks a lot stronger. What are you seeing in dairy markets at the moment? And I suppose what do you see the milk price being in the next 3 to 6 months?
I would have described the recovery, not everybody liked it, but I would have described the recovery as a fragile one, and in fact it's turning out a bit like that, unfortunately. The milk price to date has been supported mainly on the fat side by butter, by a strong performance on cream and butter. The protein side of milk has not recovered to the same extent and is affected in the main by an overhang of 350,000 tonnes of stock and intervention, but also by a recovery in milk supply in the EU, better milk output in New Zealand and very strong milk output in the US. All are affecting market sentiment. Buyers are buying much, much shorter, and sentiment is negative. Nobody sees there is no big demand event up ahead that will support the price. So I think we need to be cautious, very cautious on milk price through peak and beyond.
Do you think that the EU will open the intervention again, or will they need to open it?
I'd be quite surprised if intervention doesn't open, yes. Very, very, very surprised. And I suppose perhaps the question is, will the ceiling of 109,000 tonnes be enough in the current year?
And I suppose co-ops like yourselves, you would have sold forward some product and you might be covered out. Do you see that the price that's there at the moment will be sustained through the peak? And I suppose that's in the next couple of months that'll be able to sustain.
Well, as I said, own contracts in the current year have been quite short duration, so I would imagine there's not a huge amount of product sold forward across the industry, and indeed that would be the case for ourselves. So it's difficult to see beyond maybe 6 or 8 weeks at this point.
So really, I suppose in conclusion, farmers should be cautious around the milk price that's going ahead, going into the next couple of months. Albeit we'll be looking for some demand increases is what's needed, but they're slow to come on. Look, a very solid set of results from Aurivo this morning. Thanks very much for talking to me. Thanks, Aaron.
We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
The IFA is ramping up its campaign to ensure that farmers are treated fairly in the ongoing review of the Areas of Natural Constraint Scheme, or formerly the Disadvantaged Area Scheme. This week, the farmer organisation lobbied members of the Oireachtas in Dublin on the importance of the issue, and our reporter Amy Nora Fitzgibbon was there to talk to both the IFA and the politicians.
I'm here with Jerry Gunning, who is the Rural Development Executive Secretary of the IFA, and we're here at a briefing for Oireachtas members in Dublin, where IFA President Joe Healy set out key priorities for the ongoing review of the Areas of Natural Constraint scheme, and this is currently being reviewed, and a new set of criteria is being used to designate areas of natural constraint from 2018 onwards. So Jerry, what is the main priority, or what are the main priorities for the IFA in this review?
Well, the priority, obviously this is a major change in the context of how you classify the ANCs, which were formerly the disadvantaged areas. We're looking at new criteria here, natural handicap criteria, biophysical criteria as is laid down in European legislation. So therefore the areas have to be re-looked at again in the context of, well, what areas meet the criteria to have a new scheme in 2018. So that's what.
And it was formerly based on socio-economic factors, is that right?
Well, socio-economic and natural natural handicap, but now you're just down to solely natural handicap only. So that makes it a big difference, because obviously socioeconomic data were important the last time round, particularly obviously in areas where there was low incomes, and also population was a factor, and areas perhaps that were near urban centres were excluded in the past because the density of the population was greater than the which was 50 per square kilometre. They were greater than 50 per square kilometre, so therefore that excluded some areas in the past. So now those areas have a possibility to come in this time around, but obviously all other areas have to be looked at as well to see do they meet the natural handicap criteria, like issues like moisture, soil moisture, soil type, altitude, slopes, stoniness. Obviously the coastal areas will be erosion, obviously some of the midland areas, flooded areas, perhaps designated areas which are for SACs, etc. They have a natural handicap with the designation. So it's using all of the data that's available to create the map, and that's what we're saying here, that the flexibilities are put in place to ensure, because there are some aspects of the European legislation which make it very difficult for some member states. So we're saying that it has got to be broad flexibility to create a map, and then obviously a map has got to be presented to define the areas.
So in this new criteria, I guess it sounds like it's more of a scientific sort of basis they're looking at. So is there maybe the potential for some areas losing out but other areas winning in this new scheme?
Well, that is possible. But obviously, look at the IFA objective would be that the department and the minister must ensure that all efforts are made to maintain the existing boundaries, because
farmers that are currently in the scheme, to keep them in there and to add new as possible.
Yes, exactly. Keep them in, but adding new areas perhaps it may be clusters of townlands, maybe in certain areas, because you had to be beside the main block of disadvantaged areas in the past to get in. Yeah. Now it's possible for those island areas to get in. So therefore that's a kind of a new dimension of it. But if we can hold the area, then obviously the next piece of the jigsaw, of course, is to define the natural handicap. Where is the worst land? Where is the next worst land? So on and so forth. So therefore, you have to draw what they call internal lines. There are currently internal lines. We have offshore islands which get the highest rate of payment. Obviously, nobody else will get a high as the offshore islands. So all other payments will be lower than that, starting with the mountains, the hill areas, then working into severely handicapped areas and less severely handicapped areas. There could be more classifications than that, but look, we have 4 at the moment. You know, you could have 10, you could have 20, but that obviously would be quite complex and confusing. So obviously this is an area that's going to have to be considered by the Minister and the Department of Agriculture, but we're looking for kind of a fair outcome here in relation to that the payment rates, and the President has clearly set it out, that the payment rates reflect the natural handicap. Of course, most importantly, of course, we have to have the additional money, because there's a promise here of a programme of government commitment of 25 billion euros to add to the 205 we have at the moment. We want to get back to 250, which it was before the budget cuts of 2009. So that is our objective here, to make the scheme stronger, make the scheme more reflective of the natural handicaps, and that the Irish government is in a position to go to Brussels with a scheme for implementation in 2018.
And you're hopeful you'll see the maps before they go to Brussels?
Well, I think it would be appropriate that the maps would be issued at some stage, obviously, but look, we have to give the time and the space here for the department to gather all the information which is out there, whether it's their own data, Teagasc data, soil data, weather data.
And that will take time.
Yes, it will. I would imagine that they have a fair lot of this done already, but it's a question, I suppose, is creating the final map is important. So hopefully within the next maybe 6 to 8 weeks, we would like to think that there should be a map produced. Maybe it could go out for consultation, and then obviously there would be a look at this map. But of course, the next question then is, with the map, I'm not sure everybody will be happy with the map. There'll be various people who feel that they should be in. There'll be various who are in, who maybe are out. But we've set out 3 principles. We want more money, we want to maintain the areas that we currently have, and add if a number of areas were left out in the past. And importantly, for the farmers, and I suppose all farmers would look at this in the context of what's it worth to them, that the payment rate is reflective of...
It covers 75% of the landmass of Ireland, so it's a really important payment for farmers.
Yes, it's huge. And in the scale of things, people say, look at this, say the average payment is 2,000, but for some farmers that could represent 10% of their income. In some instances it could really be more. Like we have some figures there from each of the counties outlined today as well, in terms of the importance of the scheme in terms of overall farm income in the county, and of course as you go to the west of Ireland, the ANC payment of the total farm income in the county can be up to 30 to 40% of the total farm income.
Okay, well, the importance of the issue, I suppose, is reflected by the number of Oireachtas members here today, and we wish you all the best with the campaign. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you, Amy.
I'm now joined by Charlie McConalogue, Fianna Fáil spokesperson on agriculture. Charlie, there's a lot of politicians here today, which is great to see. The ANC review is coming up, and obviously you represent Donegal. What are farmers in your constituency saying to you about the review?
Well, I suppose there's a couple of key issues. First of all, farmers want to see that the scheme, the Areas of Natural Constraint scheme, actually does carry out the role it's supposed to do within the CAP programme, which is compensate farmers for the constraints on their land, and that the payments towards that would be representative of that. And I mean there would be general agreement that at the moment the three levels of payment that are there are not representative of the constraint that different types of land have. So it's important that this review is used to ensure that the scheme is reformed and that the outcome of it does actually have payments in place which properly reflect the type of land that farmers are farming. Alongside that as well, obviously there's farmers concerned in relation to keeping the payments that they have at the moment, and it forms a part of farmers' income, so that's a concern and a consideration. And I mean the position of those farmers has to be understood as well and be fed into the review process. But I think coming out of it, what's key is that we do see an increase in the budget, and we do see that this review opportunity is used to ensure that the payment levels, that there's proper differentiation, and that whether you're on hill land or mediocre lowland or less severe land, that the payment actually properly reflects that.
Yeah. And when you're saying to restore, or to pay more money to farmers in disadvantaged areas, I presume you mean sort of to restore the cuts that were made in 2009, or even to go beyond that?
Yeah, no, I think to go back to, it's 202 million per year at the moment, and that was previously 250 million, so I think certainly go towards that. But also I think looking within the wider rural development programme, and particularly as we go towards the next CAP programme as well, the role that the ANC payment plays within the CAP, I think there needs to be more emphasis put on it, because I think it is a mechanism to ensure that farmers who are farming marginal land and who struggle to make a profit in it, that we do see a situation where they can be viable, and this particular payment should be the mechanism to do that. That was the key rationale behind it initially as well, and it's important it does play that role within the current CAP, but also within future CAP too.
And what do you think about the strain, I suppose, on the government funds, because it is co-funded by the government and by national funds? Do you think it's possible that they will give more money to it over time? I know they're allocating more money in next year's budget, but in terms of the ultimate goal of getting back to 250 million per year?
Yeah, they certainly should, and I think the other thing that needs to be borne in mind here is that the government are currently significantly underspent in relation to the National Exchequer element of the rural development programme. So I think in terms of that underspend that's been there across a number of schemes, that the government, first of all, and the point I've been making repeatedly to the Minister, the government need to actually follow through and deliver on their spending commitment within the current CAP programme. And I think in relation to the underspend that has already developed and that will continue unless the government address it, the ANC payment is something and should be a priority in relation to using that underspend.
Okay, and in terms of, just on a practical level, finally, Charlie, what can politicians like yourself do to help get this over the line?
Yeah, well, the Fianna Fáil party have been absolutely clear that there needs to be proper consultation with farmers across the country in relation to this process. It's been very much a secret process so far, and the department have been indicating, and I've raised several parliamentary questions in relation to it, but they're doing the scientific background and the gathering of the information in relation to the biophysical criteria. But following on from this, and before they revert to Europe, I think it's important and crucial that there is consultation, and also then in relation to how through the areas of specific constraint option within the scheme, that there's proper consultation on that as well. I think many farmers are concerned this is going to be presented as a fait accompli, and that it'll be railroaded at the end, and it'll be a divide and conquer approach by the department. And I think there needs to be proper consultation, and we do need, ultimately coming out to see the ANC system reformed, so it does carry out the role that's there, but also that it acknowledges the income role that it plays for many farmers at the moment as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm now here with Martin Kenny, Sinn Féin TD for the Sligo-Leitrim area. So Martin, the Area of Natural Constraint scheme, we're here at an Oireachtas briefing today. It's a very important scheme for farmers. It provides a payment for eligible land in disadvantaged areas, and they're currently worth over 205 million, and they benefit 95,000 farmers. There's a review coming up. What are you hearing from your people in your constituency about the review and what they want from it?
Well, first of all, the disadvantaged area it was in the beginning when I went back many years ago, and it made a huge difference to farmers on marginal land and mountain type land, which would be mainly the type of land that's in the constituency that I represent, from West Cavan right across Leitrim up into South Donegal and all of Sligo. And the big advantage that it gave was that it meant farmers knew that there was one payment they were getting, regardless of what happened, what the weather was like, how things went. They were going
along
to get
with their
payment.
BPS.
Along with their BPS. It was something they had all the time. So, the review of it now is, for them, is an opportunity to restore that to the levels it was at before, and that's what we need to see, is that the maximum amount of money will be given to the farmers that have the land that has the most constraint. That's really the priority we need to see come about. The big thing, I suppose, from our point of view and from a lobbying point of view, is that we need to see what the government intends to send to Brussels before it's been sent. We need transparency around that, so we know what exactly is their plan, what are they going to look for, and then we need to make sure that if we're not happy with it, that we have an opportunity to change it before it is sent for approval by Brussels, because it is absolutely vital that the farmers that live on the land that has the most constraint will get the most money from it, because that's what they're designed to do.
Exactly, and that is sort of the way it's constructed at the moment in terms of farmers in the offshore islands get the highest payment, and then followed by farmers in mountain areas. But you're saying that with the reallocation of money in the next budget and that it needs to stay that way, or they need to be given more even?
Well, it needs to stay that way, and I think they need to be given more. I think particularly farmers who are struggling and who are productive, who are producing a lot of produce on marginal land, need to get an advantage for doing that, and the only advantage they can get for that is from this scheme. There's also, of course, the situation where we have farmers that are on very, very good land that are getting it, and there's going to be a little bit of controversy around that, but hopefully it can be resolved to the benefit of all, and that we can maintain as much as possible that everybody can get something from it, but we really need to make sure that the vast majority of the funds that come in go to the land that has the most constraint.
And are you hopeful that this new scheme, with its new criteria, with its biophysical criteria, will result in people who need it getting it, and people who don't need it having it taken away?
On the face of it should do that, because prior to this, the scheme also included socio-economic reasons. For instance, if you could have very good land, and if you were near a town where there was a lot of economic deprivation, a lot of people on unemployment benefits, it benefited you. And I mean, that really isn't going to be the case after this, and it shouldn't be. So that will change, but really it's back down to making sure that we see exactly what is going to be sent, and that the department show us and show the politicians and show the farm organisations what the proposals are, and that we have an input into it.
And what are people saying to you in your constituency? What are farmers saying to you?
Farmers are concerned in the constituency. They're concerned that I suppose that they would lose again, because very many farmers have been suffering hugely over many number of years with cutbacks after cutbacks after cutbacks. I mean, this particular scheme back when it was the disadvantaged area scheme was a much better scheme than it is today, and they're fearful that will continue to happen, and they want to see this as an opportunity to reverse that. So that's what we want to do, is try and reverse the trend and ensure that the people on the most constraint get the best payments.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. So I'm here now with Danny Healy-Ray, Independent TD for Kerry. And Danny, what's your priority with the ANC review?
Well, first of all, my main priority is to ensure that farmers in the disadvantaged areas who were cut €1,000 off of their disadvantaged payments back in 2009, that's restored to them. Every other sector, and we don't begrudge any person that was cut to get back to where they were, but the farmers in the disadvantaged areas need to get back that €1,000 first, and that's where the baseline was start for we'll say demands for additional payments out of the new ANC payments. We have to get back what was taken off us first.
Okay.
For the people.
Are you happy with the 25 million that's being allocated for next year's budget?
Well, I'd wish that it was more, and it won't seem so much when it's divided up between all the farmers who are struggling at the present time. So we will be agitating and looking for more. But it's very important that, first of all, we get back the €1,000, or we give back the €1,000 to the people in the disadvantaged areas. I'm talking about the disadvantaged areas, that their headage payments was cut by that much in 2009.
Is that what you're hearing from people in your constituency? Is that what they want?
Of course it is, and that's what I'm hearing here today, and I'm glad to have already raised it with the Taoiseach and the Order of Business over a week ago. So, and of all the things I asked him about, he was listening to me about this. So I will press it further and I'll keep at it.
Okay, thanks a million, Danny.
You're very good,
Cheers.
Amy.
Bye-bye.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app, and on iTunes every Thursday.
The Better Farm Beef programme continues to go from strength to strength. This week, Kieran Lenihan spoke to Better Farm Programme Advisor Tommy Cox about the plans for Martin O'Hare's farm in County Louth.
Kieran Lenihan here. We're on the farm of Martin O'Hare, who's the new Louth representative in the Better Farm Programme Phase 3, and with his Programme Advisor Tommy Cox. We've just spent the first day on the farm, planning out the next 6 months or so. Tommy, what are the big changes that we're going to put in place or that we've come up with today for Martin?
I suppose initially there's a dairy platform in place in the farm, so there's a few fields that needed further paddocking, so we put in place a plan to paddock that. We also looked at increasing stocking numbers, so from replacements within the suckler herd, and then looking at different options of other replacements from outside the herd.
We looked through Martin's replacements coming through for the spring herd. He probably doesn't have enough of his own suitable replacements to go bulling. He's a lot of kind of Charlie ones in there, very terminal, so we said that he's going to be culling a few cows now, and he can use the cash from that to buy in some bull and heifers for the breeding season soon. So in the next few weeks we're going to keep an eye out for kind of that maternal type animal, kind of a cementally nice limousine heifer to bull. That'll be your preferred cow type, Martin?
Yeah, I suppose cemental limousine, yeah.
We're going to try and keep milking it.
Milking the thing, yeah.
Very good, very good. Your replacement index is high, you're up at €85. But having said that, you're using AI here a lot, yeah?
Yeah, probably about 50% AI, yeah.
And what sort of bulls, Martin, would you be using?
A few Solairs and limousine, and a bit of touch of cement like that, just trying to get replacements in,
Okay, so it's early March now. Tommy, what is on Martin's agenda for the next month? What does he have to do?
The next month is key. I suppose ground conditions are fairly good up here, so it's key to a lot of stock are get out. The priority stock to get out first, so we'll be looking at getting the autumn cows out as soon as possible, and then moving on towards our heifers, getting them out to grass as soon as possible. The conditions definitely do allow, but just if you've got a few dry days to get the stock out.
Martin, you have a relatively early spring calving start date. When does it kick off here?
Well, early January anyway.
And how far are you through it at the moment? So we're in the first week of March here.
Yeah, just about 3 cows left to calve.
Out of?
55.
All gone well so far?
Not too bad. Lost 1 calf and not too bad.
Good stuff.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app, and on iTunes every Thursday. Brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Finally, with Easter just around the corner and the end of Lent in sight, are you thinking about a little food indulgence? In this week's Irish Farmers Journal, we have the publication just for you, a magazine completely focused on delicious Irish food. Amy Fitzgibbon sat down with Irish Country Living consumer editor Ciara Leahy to talk about what's inside.
Hello, this is Amy Fitzgibbon, news reporter with the Irish Farmers Journal. I'm here with Ciara Leahy, and Ciara, in this week's Irish Farmers Journal, we have a stunning publication completely focused on food. And even from the front cover, it looks stunning. So tell me a little bit more about this new publication, Irish Country Living Food.
Hi Amy. Yeah, so readers of the Irish Farmers Journal and Irish Country Living, from working here for years and talking to a lot of our readers, I mean, they're real foodies, really obviously concerned about the source of their food and enjoying fantastic Irish produce. Food is obviously every week in the Irish Farmers Journal and the Country Living section through Nev McGuire's recipes and a variety of other chefs, but I suppose we wanted to bring it to a whole new level. So Irish Country Living Food, our first edition came out for Christmas, and now we have our Easter edition, which is just brimming with gorgeous spring and Easter recipes.
Yeah, it looks beautiful, like lots of stunning pictures and lots of green and all different colours. So it sounds gorgeous, so give us a sneak peek into what readers can expect.
I suppose our first kind of of, when you open the paper, one of the first kind of recipe themes that you come across is Sunday brunch, which it's really funny. Brunch is such a real thing in the cities, and sometimes it hasn't gone out into rural areas quite as much. There's still that divide between breakfast and lunch, which isn't a bad thing, because you can waste a lot of hours with brunch.
Farmers get up so early as well; they can't be waiting around till 12 o'clock to have their breakfast.
But I suppose cafes are still kind of doing the whole breakfast lunch thing. But if you really want to explore the whole brunch area, we have some gorgeous recipes. Sharon Hearn-Smith is a food stylist. She does a lot of work with us, and I mean, she's got these spinach pancakes with goat's cheese, radish and avocado that are just so green and have a real wow effect. I suppose they're absolutely, I had the pleasure of tasting them. They're beautiful. I suppose when people think brunch, they think eggs benedict, but we put a little bit of a twist on it with eggs benedict with a black pudding, potato cake and a really, really easy hollandaise sauce. People can be a bit scared by hollandaise sauce because it splits a lot. This one is foolproof. There's also this Mexican baked egg nest with a lime dressed leaves. It's got a real kind of a bang. There's a little bit of chilli in it, and it's really, really wow. And there's an asparagus tart with hot smoked trout with poached eggs and creamy dill dressing. Now this one, like when you see it on the page, this is one that you just put in the middle of a table and people just go wow.
Yeah, it's a great, it's a showstopper. Like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Then we have obviously the Easter feast, which we did with Paul Flynn down in Tanny Restaurant in Dungarvan, and the West Waterford Food Festival is actually happening in a few weeks. So they put together an absolutely gorgeous herb crusted rack of Comera mountain lamb. It's stunning, but also kind of a quirky take on it is it comes with spiced crispy lamb belly. Now if you look at them, they kind of look like croquettes, but they're not croquettes because there's no potato in it. But I suppose it's just giving like a little bit of lamb on the side, little twist. I mean, it looks like if you serve this up, it looks like you've put a lot of effort into your Easter dinner. Really, you've just taken our recipe and run with it.
And that comes breadcrumbs on it.
That comes with the sides as well. But of course, Easter is all about the desserts and the chocolate. And again, with Sharon Hearn-Smith, we did a kind of a unique taste on the chocolate. We have these no-bake mini Easter chocolate cookie nests, which are really, they look gorgeous and they're perfect for kids. If
only you could see this now, what I'm seeing. It looks amazing.
Literally, you can
mouth
see
waters.
The plumpiness of the oozing chocolate. There's also these chewy salted chocolate and date caramel sandwich cookies, which are kind of a healthy take on it. There's a baked Easter egg chocolate pudding, which it just comes in a bowl, and like you literally just
eat the whole thing.
You just put it in the centre of the table and put out some spoons and leave everybody at it. But I suppose our real showstopper is our lemon and poppy seed ombre rose cake with white chocolate buttercream icing. It's our front cover. It's not a traditional chocolate. The chocolate is actually in the white chocolate buttercream icing, so it's not a real chocolate.
Yes, it's a sponge cake. It looks like.
Yeah, it is.
Cut it in half. Yeah.
I mean, I brought it when we had it all shot. I brought it into the office, and there was people literally running over each other to get it. And I suppose this one, when you look at it, you think, "Oh my God, there's no way I could do this." It actually is quite achievable if you just kind of break it in and follow the steps.
So that's working with the icing.
Yes,
obviously in that one. Okay, so I suppose it's called ICL Food, but it's not just about the recipes, is it?
No, look, we have lots of foodie news, such as events coming up, cookery demonstrations, hot new restaurants and new Irish products on the market. We have a gorgeous piece on some of the best places in the country to enjoy afternoon tea. And, I love afternoon tea, but literally this goes... literally we have options from fancy 5-star hotels to a vintage bus that tours around Dublin City while you sip your tea.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a wine section to accompany your Easter dinner, and all the wines are priced under €20. And Amy, the selection really includes some excellent wines, especially for that price. We have a Malbec from Argentina called Porta 6, which is from O'Brien's, and it's just brimming with bold, vibrant flavours, fantastic with Easter lamb and beef. And also, look, many people opt for red with a meal such as lamb, but some people are just white wine lovers through and through, and we profile a bottle of Louis Jadot Chardonnay, which has real body, which it could also carry the bolder flavours of the meat. We have a piece on pairing Irish craft beers with chocolate. I mean, seriously, craft beers, Easter
chocolate,
eggs.
you can't really go wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have the opportunity for a reader to win dinner for 10 people in Rollies in Ballsbridge. So
I love Rollies.
Yeah.
God, I want to enter that.
And
I probably can't.
No, you can't. That's for a reader. But I mean, you and 9 of your friends or family, like a great meal out. So that's all in this week's Irish Country Living Food, which is inserted into the Farmer's Journal.
And of course, it's all Irish recipes. It's all Irish. It's Irish
absolutely. And one
chefs,
really
Irish
important thing I
products.
forgot to mention is for every recipe, we highlight an Irish producer whose ingredient can be used in the recipe. So really, we are just really kind of emphasising our farm to fork right throughout.
Okay, so you have to get your hands on this, and it's in this week's Irish Country Living and Irish Farmers Journal. Thank you, Ciara.
Thank you.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app and on iTunes every Thursday. Brought to you by Aurivo, the home of Irish dairy.